show this morning. I am Mamadou Mbodj. Yes, usually I do not host it. Ordinarily you would have either Ibrahim Abale or Jennifer Sonko. But today I am the host and that's it. I've got in the studio here, Mr. Malika, my old sparring partner, our GM. He's in here. So we're doing this together today, Mr. Ka.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to have someone like you, with your intellect, and your argumentative approach.
Oh, say more, say more. I'm louder.
I am more than happy to share the platform with you, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely, you're welcome. And I think Adedarami will join us later on. So what do we have today? Well, we divide this program into segments. The first segment, we usually delve into one African proverb and sort of enjoy sort of our intellectual calisthenics. That's what we do. And then afterwards, we review the newspapers, the headline stories. We go into them, really, perhaps not with some depth, but with some sort of light-hearted insights. Then from there, today, what do we have? Segment one, Gambia educational system, entrepreneurially driven? Question there. We'll have Professor Per Gomez to answer that for us. And then our second segment, national workshop on double shift schooling system. Do we need that? We'll have Dr. Amadou Diallo, lecturer at UTG, to help us answer that. So the first segment, Mr. Ka, we have here what? If you borrow an axe, return it with some of the ribs it has cut. If you borrow an axe, return it with some of the ribs it has cut. What do you make of that? Very interesting there.
It's about gratitude and reciprocity. When someone does good for you, you also have to return the same favor. I think that is the essence of the quote, that one good turn deserves another. So if somebody gives you a tool to go and use and then you profited from that, then you should also reflect and also share. And that is just a cultural thing and a traditional thing in Africa. So when they come and give you something, you always have to reciprocate by returning whatever token gift that you have in order to express your appreciation. And that has been, something that's been ongoing as long as, memory can serve.
That's it. And do you know that sort of discussing this in the context of Tobaski, I remember sort of if you cook a dish and take it as a gift to somebody, when they're returning the bowl, they put some money in it, extra. Quite interesting. You put some money in it and give it to you. So it's appreciation, but giving a sort of goodwill extra, isn't it? Leaving the ribs on the axe.
Yes. I think you have captured the essence there, especially in the context of Tobaski as well, where we share, there's a lot of sharing that goes on, that you have to identify people that you take gifts to. Some people, because of the relationship, they also, in return, have to give you something back in return. And that's just gratitude and reciprocity in terms of giving and accepting a gift. That has been a long tradition in the African way of doing things, especially in our sub-region here. You are easily invited at home to come and join in a feast. Also, when you go to visit people, you come from the village, you come along with a hen or a cock or something to give, as a gift. In return, when you're going also, they give you something. Yes. So that give and take.
Absolutely, but there you've said there in the African context, I'm sure all the people, be it in Europe or in Asia, will say, oh, we also have something similar. We have our parallels, we are also part of it. But then we will continue that. In the meantime, we've been joined by Adedarami.
I'm intrigued by what you both just said, because we were discussing this just leading up to Tobaski, and I was saying that in England, for example, I could just turn up at my brother's house or my sister's house uninvited, or any relative's house, and I would get food. They provide food for me. However, if I went to the house of some of my English friends, uninvited, they would sit me over there, they'd be having the meal at the table, and they'd give me tea and biscuits. They wouldn't say, come and join us, because, it was unexpected. Well, in the African thing, even context, even if you're not an expected guest, they would still include you in the meal. And I think it's one of the things that people find that's very different. I mean, here, even if you walk by somebody in the office and they're having breakfast, they don't mean it, but they'll say, come and join me for breakfast. I never get that in England. I mean, I worked in England for 42 years. No English person ever said, oh, come and have some of my breakfast. And like I said, even if the person here doesn't mean it, but at least they make the gesture. Yes. And it's a very different thing, you know, that sort of thing. And you hear you talk about reciprocal.
Reciprocity and that sort. And you are right. In many ways, when a stranger walks really into any household and say, I'm hungry, people, I don't know, do we feel guilty? We'll give you food. What do you think about it?
It's that kinsmanship that originated even in those days within the village settings. You remember people used to intermarry one village to the other, and that used to be the bridge that builds, you know, the different communities that live, you know, from a distance. And that's how things started. So we exchange in terms of kola nuts, in terms of gifts, in terms of activities or events, when you invite them to occasions. So these are things that came to be because of the kinsmanship, the bond that was created because of the relationship of intermarrying one village to the other. I think that is the basis, the foundation upon which some of these cultures emerge. Because you tend to relate, you go distances to another village. You carry a lot of gift when you go. And also when you're returning back home, they will also see you off up to the edge of the village and give you some gifts. Sometimes they can give you a goat or sheep or something, and you take along. Or when you're going also, you take along a cock or a cockerel or a hen, you know, and you come with it, and everybody celebrates your arrival. So it's not so much the quantity or so, but it's the gesture. You know,
and what you mentioned, I think, when you said when a stranger comes, there are some studies that were done in the maybe 60s and 70s, and they were quite controversial at the time because they said that it is in fact one of the reasons why Africa ended up being colonized. Because when strangers came, we didn't immediately see them as an enemy. We actually welcomed people, and unfortunately, some of those people who we welcomed ended up enslaving us, ended up colonizing us. And you know, the studies went on to say that if you look at a lot of the kind of science fiction that was written in the West in the 50s and 60s, the stranger from outer space was always viewed as an enemy, you know, and that is their mentality. They didn't see the stranger as possibly somebody who should be welcomed and so on. Whilst with us, you know, to our detriment, we welcomed people who then ended up exploiting us, you know, and enslaving and, as I said, colonizing.
I think what you said is as good as yesterday, as today. We are more accommodating than the Western culture.
But the interesting thing here, Malik, then you can go on, is that it seems to me that in a particular context, that is a strength.
Oh yes, of course. Yes,
so it's a case of where your strength in one context could be your weakness in another.
Totally.
What do you think?
Yeah, but I think I agree entirely with that analysis. You know, that your strength can serve as your Achilles heel and become something that. But you know, these are things that are embedded into us, and still up to today, the Africans are so accommodating. It's just the leadership that has not break down the barriers. But we don't see each other as strangers even. We receive each other as brothers and sisters. You are welcomed into the home as a family member until you even settle down, get married, and integrate and become part of the family. If you look at the African setting, most of them, you would see people coming all the way from Mali, from Guinea, and they settle in a home, accommodated. Eventually they get married there, have kids, and then become gelled, part of the family fabric.
It's one of the reasons why I resent the artificial borders that we now call various countries. We did not choose those borders. You know, no sensible Gambian would have chosen Gambia as a country where you're completely engulfed by Senegal, or decided that, oh, there should be a border between Senegal and Guinea-Bissau, or you know, between these countries, Guinea and Guinea-Conakry. We did not choose those borders. So when I see people holding on to those borders, oh, I'm a Gambian, I'm a Senegal.
What hurts most, Ade, is when they hunt these people, like say, these are aliens, the Guineans, you know, it used to be such a common practice in those days when we were young, that you will see, you know, some kinsmen, the foolers, running around because they'll be chasing them. You don't have documents. It's so embarrassing in Africa, especially in this day and age. I think institutions such as, ECOWAS and all these AU should look into really taking those things away. As if you need,
They try.
you need
it
license to
hasn't
stay here and work and all that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely something that ought to be really abandoned and put in the bin.
That's it, isn't it? You have a case of sort of the leadership, the elite, with the idealism, this Pan-Africanism, which is really a modern sort of concept in the sort of context of longer history, isn't it? But again, people are not like that, isn't it?
Yeah, quite.
That's that incongruity. That's really, I think, what you just described there.
Yeah,
How do we
you know,
bridge that?
when we recently talked about Pan-Africanism, we talked about ECOWAS, we talked about SADC and so on. And just yesterday, Rwanda announced that they were leaving the regional bloc because of the criticism they've been getting for their involvement in DR Congo, and so yet another bloc is breaking. We've seen, of course, with our own ECOWAS, the 3 Sahel states have pulled out. Guinea was suspended. So, it's really
but that's the
difficult to
politics of
hold
convenience.
of
Sometimes
course.
these people, because they don't want to be held accountable to
of
be,
course.
part of a civilized, organized kind of structure. So then they tend to exit out of that, kind of setup and give all sorts of excuses. But they have to be part of it because geographically, you cannot dislocate yourself. You have to trade.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to relate with these people. You need them in as much as they need you.
Yeah.
So all these things that we are not part of it again, you will have to sign some kind of arrangement or agreement to trade. Because Mali must trade with Senegal. They must trade with,
with Guinea.
They must
With-
trade.
with
They cannot go
all these
without,
countries that-
without the other, countries. So it's a fallacy.
Absolutely. Started with Axis and RIPS and ended up with Pan-Africanism.
Yeah,
You
correct.
see how dynamic
Correct.
can be. Thank you very much there, Mr. Malik. Now we'll just take a short break. We'll be right back. Don't move.
QMoney is back again with its easy-to-use, secure and convenient mobile app that allows you to carry out all your transactions. No matter where you are or what time it is, you can always access your funds. With the new QMoney app, you can cash in and out, buy credit, buy QPower, shop, make payments, and so much more. You can also send QMoney, pay bills, receive international remittances, and transfer cash to others. Just download the app from your Play Store or App Store and get started. For more information, call customer care on 133. QMoney, Sinu Calpe. We innovate, others follow.
Oryx Gas, the energy that brings us together.
Powered by Africa, Oryx Energies.
Hello, welcome back to This Morning. I am Mamadou Boch, and today you've got the 3 wise men, really. I've got Adil Darami co-hosting with me, and we've got Mr. Malika RGM as our guest. Now, what do we go to next?
I think Tobaski.
Yes.
And the post-Tobaski syndrome that we're talking about, really. I mean, those of us who have come to work, we've driven through empty streets. And for other people who've been struggling to get to work, what we've seen is that those who are waiting for commercial vehicles have been left stranded. They've been waiting, because there are so few commercial vehicles on the road. And it's almost as if, yes, the government hasn't declared a public holiday, but the public has declared its own public holiday.
De facto.
Because some people prayed on Saturday
On
as
Saturday,
well. There
yeah.
was not like that uniformity
yeah.
in terms of the day on which we prayed. Some prayed on Friday. I don't know, but I heard Bursa area, they prayed on Saturday. So, and people traveled all the way there to pray Saturday. They just decided to do what Parliament said, that if you have a holiday.
Well, this is it. I mean, I was told that the schools were resuming today, I didn't see a single school child.
But we did. Remember?
Oh, you did?
We did.
few,
We
yeah,
saw
few,
few
yeah.
around Bruceby area.
Oh, right,
yeah,
because we
saw
actually
few.
commented on it.
But
that we
for the
didn't see.
majority of schools, I can tell you that the number would be very, very scanty. They will not be
so
many.
so you have these things, and I think one of the also noticeable things, which we're doing a story about it, is that in the lead up to Tobaski, everywhere you went at the roundabouts, you had people selling rams, and now there are no rams there, but the filth. They haven't cleared the debris,
municipality have a lot of work
and they've
to
got
do.
some
They
serious work
collected
to
a
do.
lot of tax from these rounds.
Well,
so
this is it.
I
And now
that's the consequences, they
cleanup
have to deal
starts.
with. Yeah.
And that's another thing. And you do wonder, we go through this every year, so why don't we get a situation where there's an immediate cleanup?
Designated
There's
or designated
designated area where they can
Look
dump
at that
their
market
stuff.
in Sukuta. For me, I still cannot understand why the state did not take the leadership
Yeah.
to open that place.
Yeah, quite.
With all these stories that abound going about that place, all this, it's nonsense.
Yeah, quite.
It's about time. That place is so well built
Yep.
and it's big. And it's there, it's
It
just
would- and
sitting
it would
there
take
idling.
everybody, yeah.
And then they're talking about looking at places where to sell rubber. Come on, this is
You have a
there. Let
place.
them demonstrate that type of leadership and open that market,
Yeah.
for God's sake, and ensure that people go there to do business. They can
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
But isn't this the issue really? These designations on the one hand, and our habits, what we do.
Yeah,
How do we break it? Is it sort of stricter law enforcement? What is
Absolutely.
it? So we've been talking about this for a long time.
time and
So
time
in a
again.
way, if an administrator says, okay, I want to deal with this
Yeah,
really
quite.
in
Yeah,
a
quite.
sustainable way, what do I do?
Yeah.
Consequences.
Yeah.
Where there are attendant consequences, people will comply. That is what they understand. If they assign a designated place where you should go and sell ram or convert to do marketing or whatever, and people refuse to go there, take their things, seize them, impose a fine, make sure that that happens, so that next time they will be aware. They will not.
And
But
Absolutely.
you have to be adamant. As long as they come, you also come back to do the same thing. Don't give up.
Granted.
And for a durable period.
Granted, but again, you know the sentimental view. I'll be the
the-
devil's advocate here. So you will obviously have people saying, oh no, look at the government taking advantage of these ordinary people. They don't make much money.
Exactly the
Can
point
we
I was
help
going
them?
to make.
It's the
Society
same
is about doing
sentimentality.
the right thing. It's not about listening
we
to those.
encourage it by
Yeah.
having that kind of sentimental view.
Yeah, but
And unfortunately, it's and that's the point I was
yeah,
going
but
to make.
those will happen in any case.
course.
But that's where leadership come. What is right ought to happen, and the majority of people will support that. Despite the sentiment and all these things, people will know that this is the right thing, to take the people off from these junctions and put them in that market that is neat and nice, and ensure that you clear that place. People will eventually come round to your way of thinking.
Mr. Carr, when we had the Operation Clear the Road and we went around, members of the public were saying to us, but you need to find somewhere else for these people to go and sell their wares and so on. Well, they're not meant to be selling it on the road.
Yes, but
You
they
know.
have
And
to have
even
a
when you
place.
get them somewhere,
That's-
they wouldn't go
they
there.
won't
That's
go
why
there.
I'm
As
saying,
you talk
for
about
instance, the
Sukuta.
Sukuta market is there,
Yeah.
and that is ready for use. So I don't understand why they are dithering or why they are not taking the necessary measures to ensure that people go there to sell their stuff. Over time, people will get used to that place and start going there. And let them clear all these roundabouts, make it look neat, clean and tidy. But leadership has to come there, where you have to be adamant and insistent. And the other thing that is to Aisha that I don't like is vehicles parked on the new roads, the sides. If you come to Brusubi, my area, on that you see a whole area of garages, parked vehicles on the sides where people are meant to use as sidewalks.
True.
I don't understand. Where are the authorities? They're completely absent. They have to be there to ensure that all that is cleared. They are not meant to be there. It's an eyesore.
So that is the issue, isn't it?
It's
Let me give you one incident. I couldn't believe it. At traffic lights, Caraba Avenue, there was a driver who violated one of the rules, and the policewoman came over talking to the person, and everybody was like, "Oh, Balalko, forgive the person. He wouldn't do it next time." You see, that attitude to law that world view is really a world view in
Yeah,
many ways.
of course.
To law,
Yeah.
it
but
sort of
but
undermines,
if
doesn't
the
it?
police ignores that and do what is right, that person will know next time. Sometimes you just have to ignore these people
But-
and do what is right.
You know, when the roads authority started, they put out a press release some months ago saying that they were going to be installing traffic lights and cameras. The general talk in the office was that even at places where there are traffic lights and there's a red signal, they said people won't stop. And that was the that was the attitude, you know, that people thought, oh, you know, they'll put in there, but people won't stop. And the fact that people actually think like that tells you everything you need to know about how, you know, we don't care for rules and regulations and order and you know, it's just anarchy, really, seems to be the order of the day.
That's it. So let's just morph into the newspaper review without newspapers, doesn't it?
Yes, we can
Hamlet without the prince.
we can either go locally or internationally. So if I go internationally,
Okay.
the big story that is dominating Western media is, of course, the riots in Los Angeles, mainly from the sort of Latino community. And I have to say, you know, because they're protesting about arrests and deportations. And to be honest, it serves them right, because if you look at the last election, they voted massively for Donald Trump. And, you know, Donald Trump had made all these threats about he was going to clamp down on, you know, illegal immigration. And now I see people complaining, saying, you know, these people might have been here illegally. They're working at Home Depot and all these places, but they're paying taxes, and even though they're undocumented, well, sorry.
Yeah, in fairness
you know.
to him, his policies was in the open.
It was there.
Everybody knew
It
was
was
not
not a
like
secret.
he concealed what he wanted to
Quite.
do.
So I have no sympathy.
Yeah.
Yes, but in a way though, Adeyan and Mr. Ka, isn't it quite fascinating in many ways that really migration today, be it in the US or be it in Europe, migration has become sort of the main dynamic of
course,
geopolitics,
yeah,
as
I
it
mean,
were.
you look at the Reform Party in Britain that recently won lots and lots of
It's amazing.
council seats. That seems to be, you know, their main, some would say only, policy is about curbing illegal, as they call it, immigration. And it is, migration is very much, it's framed as the thing in France, in Italy, of course. You know, kind of anti-immigration parties have been on the rise across Europe, Belgium, the Netherlands, of course in America. You know, so yeah, it is.
Could that be an added pressure on us to know that, come on, we have to get our house in order? There's really nowhere to go now. So get your house
we're
in
not wanted.
order so that, you know, you have a home and you stay home.
It's never going to happen, and the reason it's never going to happen is if you have a country as small as the Gambia, with people sending remittances up to $1 billion a year, there is that pressure from here for our people to go there and earn the sort of money that would allow them to do that. And,
We should even encourage it.
it's-
I'll never discourage migration.
you know.
They should go. Because that's, you know, the north-south divide, skill gaps, you know, people have to go and train. They have to go and educate. They have to go and hustle and make money. The disparity between our currencies, you know, if you just earn £1,000 in the UK, that translates up to about $70,000 to $80,000. So it's easy. So you can see the pull factors, you know, they are there and they're factual. And sometimes the West, they just pretend, but they have to fill in their skill gaps as well, the labor gaps, the aging population. There are a host of issues also that challenges them that they need.
Let me give you an example. I went to visit an uncle who sadly passed away recently, and he was at Northwick Park Hospital, you'll know it, just one stop from Wembley Stadium in London. And this hospital is huge. In fact, there are two hospitals combined into Northwick Park Hospital. And I visited him over a month, almost a month and a half, maybe 2 months. And I can tell you, I did not see him attended to by a single white English
Caucasian,
person. And when I say him, I don't mean just my uncle. In the wards, I didn't see a single Caucasian nurse, doctor, or cleaner. And that was almost 2 months of visiting every 2 days. So if these people talk about migration and so on, it's not going to happen, the kind of curb that they're talking about, because it will bring that system crashing down.
collapse,
You go outside of the hospitals and in the old people's homes, 90 to 95% of the care workers are Africans, they're Filipinos, they're not white.
In
English.
the U.S., the farmers were the first to protest against Donald Trump's policies that we need. We need some of these labels. So they start making exceptions to the rules.
Yeah.
And you can see countries such as Spain and others coming to Africa.
And asking for people to go there.
Italy, the population is aging very rapidly.
Yeah.
Some of the villages are empty. You go to Italy, you find places. So is Greece. The fact is they need some of these people.
Yeah.
But they have to have a structured kind of policy and program. But because of the far right as well, is pushing the agenda of migration on top. And because these people have not delivered, you know, the center left and also the right, they did not deliver for a while to the ordinary people, then this has caught up with them. And now they find themselves in a situation where they have to push back the far right in most of these
I call
countries.
it reverse colonization. For many years, these people came and colonized us. We're going now and colonizing them. Let them get a taste of what it's like, you know. So when I hear all this kind of nonsense from the right wing in the West, you know, I'm quite, you know, bloody minded about it. You know, look, we didn't ask you to come here, you know, and you're now saying you didn't ask us to go there. Well, yeah, tough. You know, we're gonna go.
That's it. So with this Los Angeles incident, as it were, what's at stake? Where is it going?
Well, I mean, Donald Trump has now sent in the army, which the Governor Newsom is very upset about because he says that has inflamed the situation. And in fact, this morning as I was coming in, he was saying that it's seemingly this is what Donald Trump wanted. He wanted these dramatic scenes of clashes between, you know, citizens and the army, so he could say, you know, look, these people are lawless. That's why we need to get rid of them. So they're kind of playing into his, but it's escalating. I mean, in you know, quite a major way, and it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere near. I mean, the army coming in is not, you know. What's the point of an army coming into a place where many people have guns? They're not going to be scared of your guns, you know. So it can only get worse, sadly.
Absolutely. So any other headline?
Yeah, I mean, I looked across and I saw how various, well, not a headline exactly, but how various people in our sub-region commemorated Eid. So in Burkina Faso, I saw Traore going to pray. In Guinea-Conakry, I saw Doumbouya. He went to his home village and actually prayed there. And as usual, he has 4 cameras following him around.
Who's that?
Mamadi Doumbouya in Guinea-Conakry,
Okay,
the leader. So he went and prayed. You had Jomai Faye as well. So all of them kind of have posted, you know, images or video of them, you know, observing.
Adama Barrow as well.
And, no, I mean, I'm talking about it here. We carried it on our news here. These ones we didn't. But of course ours, you know, King Fahd Mosque, the president was there, and he was joined by several cabinet ministers and other dignitaries who were there. But yeah, it's, you know, we did some stories where we wanted to remind people that this was a religious feast. It wasn't just about new clothes and a ram. You know, there was a religious element to it, which I think tended to get buried. And so if people watch some of our news reports, we emphasize that religious
The new
aspect
clothes
of it.
also is part of the whole
yeah,
fabric.
I know.
You know, it shows the different type of attire, how people look very beautiful and very nice, you know,
And
in
he
those
had the
kind of
tailors working
these
overnight.
grand bubbles and some of these beautiful garments, you know, the women, you know, it's very, very colorful, as you see.
Even our homes, we give our homes a makeover. You paint
And the
new,
smell as well.
the smell. You change the curtains.
The smell all over, you can smell it from a distance. You know,
exactly,
as, you know,
wafting.
You can see different smells coming from different homes. So
Absolutely,
very beautiful time.
the-
Big and beautiful, like Donald Trump would say.
That's it. Still within this vicinity, still in this neighborhood. We've got there the Point newspaper, the front page splash. Barrow condemns conflicts, calls for peace in the Muslim world.
Yes, so in his speech at after prayer, he made this appeal. So it wasn't just kind of in our sub-region as one might think, you know, Sahel and so on. He mentioned Egypt, he mentioned Sudan, he mentioned India, Pakistan, that conflict as well. So, you know, he went global with his appeal for peace. But, you know, it's, you know, there are wars happening in every corner of, you know, DR Congo, you name it. I mean, just around the world, there are wars going on. You know, Russia, Ukraine, of course, one of the kind of headline-grabbing ones as well.
Gaza.
Yeah, Gaza, of course, that got a mention. Yeah.
That is really the great story of our time.
Yes,
Gaza.
Gaza.
Absolutely. You have around the world people expressing sort of complete bewilderment at what we are seeing on our screens, the complete savagery of it all, and yet nobody's doing anything. The perpetrators appear to be doing it with impunity and even being goaded perhaps by the world's greatest power.
I mean,
extraordinary
you
situation.
had in 1982, and it always amazes me that people don't ever mention the Sabra and Shatila massacres of 1982, when the Israelis would send up flares to allow the Christian phalangists to see these people, and in a matter of days, they killed, you know, 30,000 people.
That was in Lebanon, yeah.
In Lebanon, and it hardly gets a mention. You know, I mean, that's shocking.
No, that region is a powder keg. You know? And the conflict is intractable because of the different factions. They cannot come. I think the solution would have been to two-state solution, to which have eluded them for decades now.
And and I have to say the BBC and the likes of them, they're not encouraging the kind of two-state solution. And I say this because they don't allow now on the BBC criticism of Israel. And yet I just watched last week a program on BBC where you had these settlers saying that, as far as we're concerned, when we say Israel, God gave us all of this land, including where the Palestinians are. Now, you wouldn't be allowed to say the reverse about, you know, Palestinians, you know, but
the
BBC,
river to this,
exactly, from the river to the sea, you only have to say that phrase and get banned, and yet you, the BBC, are giving voice to this. It's quite disgraceful, actually. And I wrote and complained.
But generally, the policy in the West is a two-state solution to which, you know, UK,
from the governments.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Western
but
government.
they talk about it, but their actions don't actually seem to support it.
Because they are being restrained by a very powerful ally of Israel.
You know,
I think the cracks are opening now. People are able to speak up and say, you know, you don't have to necessarily equate what Israel is doing against Jews. So it's not necessarily anti-Jewish, you know, to say that Israel is not doing the right thing. I think that is now opened as a part of conversation in the mainstream media, as opposed to a few months ago, it was very difficult to even come and take that position and align. But since the government have taken, and I've heard David Lammy spoken very firmly, and all these people, France as well, Spain, so they are coming on board to the realization that what we are witnessing is a prick in our conscience, and we cannot sit back and not talk about it. We have to talk about it, and action have to follow. And this is why those people that left, what is the name of this young lady, with their flotilla to go and I understand they have been arrested.
They've been arrested and they've been escorted into.
It's just an example of what the big powers can do if they come with their big ships to deliver food aid to the Gaza people.
This is okay. Now this is it. Given what you've just said, that in the reality of power politics, that's really where we're in. What can such pronouncements do? What's the significance? What's the value?
Well, I mean, especially when you heard Donald Trump saying that the reason why he got them to vote down the genocide thing that was brought before the UN it was because he said it's not genocide, it's a war. He said these things happen in war. I mean, as long as he has that mentality. And to be honest, the Jewish lobby have been very, very clever. Every time you have criticized Israel now, they'll say, look, we know you're just hiding your anti-Semitism, you know, beneath a perceived criticism of Israel. Really what you are, you're being anti-Semitic. And that silences people in the West, because it's like, it's the worst thing you can have. Imagine the only thing that can get you kicked out of the university now in America since Trump came in is if they find social media posts of yours that are deemed to be anti-Semitic. No other type of posts, just those. That is really quite scary. That's where we are.
Very intimidating times then, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, what a good place to end it.
I think it's a good
Really,
place to end.
That wasn't a good thought at all.
Not at all. It's depressing.
Depressing. Thank you very much. There, we've come to the end of that segment. Mr. Malika, as always, very insightful and very interesting topics. Cheers. Now what? We'll go for a short break, and when we return, we're going to have Professor Pierre Gomez, the Minister of Higher Education. And I'm sure you'll be interested in what we're going to talk about. Stay tuned.
It's Tobaski time. Whether you are sending from the Gambia to UK, USA, Europe, or the other way round, Red Coat Express has you covered. We are the Gambia's trusted air freight and shipment experts. Fast, reliable, and affordable. If you're sending from the Gambia to UK, $2,125 for the first kilo, just $400 for each extra kilo. UK to the Gambia, £6 per kilo, drop-off included, £7 per kilo, collection 10 kilograms. From pickup and packaging to customer delivery, we handle it all. Stress-free, whether you choose our air freight for speed or shipment for bigger loads, Red Coat Express has you covered. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 3077776 on Kairaba Avenue or 5322-2900 at the airport. Or you can contact our international number on +447 353 133 808. Red Coat Express, flying your Tobaski joy across borders.
Qcell mooy suñu boss. Qcell mooy suñu boss. Qcell mooy suñu boss. Soro. Go, ebe dawa da full network suta tili. Qcell. Ni lafta diamla wati jamala mune diata. Qcell. Most reliable network dumala geta wati. Qcell. Wo quality man nyon soto jam ona manke Qcell. Hani be wuloni farole kono walante be bakono jala fayola network ko se taria. Qcell suñu boss. Ñu fi njëkka indi 3G ñu dellu taxi 4G plus and now we bring you 5G. 5G. First and only 5G provider. Itella follow adi doron nesa keno. Gambia bela nyon tawo fele Qcell. Ko fasunta buka busi Qcell. Itella multi milka kukutol nati Gambia. Qcell meda lori la kiliano yele imanyina amanda wala itella ka quality dila dadi ma itelle silo wala wodol mume be keno ma. Qcell suñu boss. Qcell suñu boss. Qcell suñu boss. Qcell suñu boss. Connection be bambandi Qcell suñu boss. Qcell most innovative Qcell suñu boss.
Hello, welcome back to This Morning. Today you've got Mumudumboch and Ade Darami. I'm doing it, you know, just after the Tobaski.
We're pretending to be Jennifer and Ibrahim Balde.
And Ibrahim
Are
Balde.
you Jennifer?
all right, I'll take that one. I'll take that one on the chin. Now we've got our guest, our next segment. I've got Professor Pierre Gomez, the Minister of Higher Education. Welcome to the program, Prof.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboj, and thank you, Mr. Darami, and thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure.
Yes?
Always a pleasure.
I wouldn't immediately get to business.
Yeah,
How was your Eid? I think it is important to know.
Well, yeah. I was among those
Christian.
people who really enjoyed well, and my brothers and sisters gave me a lot of food. And then also enough meat to the extent that I had to now do the distribution again, sharing, you know. So, and that's the beauty of being in the Gambia, being in a country called the Gambia, where there is that tolerance, you know, where whenever it is Tobaski or Christmas, you don't know who is a Christian, who is a Muslim. Everybody is celebrating. And let me give you, you know, a piece of info. And well, you know, in my house, whenever there is a Muslim feast, we don't cook. For many years now, it's a rule. We don't cook because it's our brothers and sisters from the Muslim community who normally give us food. This is the practice. Before I became minister, for many years now, and now that's the situation. This is different from the the share of the meat that we receive, but the food, that's what we get. Lunch, dinner, it's all given to us.
That's wonderful.
By our neighbors and our friends, and so it continues even the following day. So this is the practice. So because of that, we stopped cooking in our house whenever there is a Muslim feast. I'm not talking about only Tobaski.
Absolutely.
Any Muslim feast, we don't cook in our house. The other thing also, from my wife's side, 3/4 of the family, they are Muslims also. So for us, Muslim Christian feast, we are always enjoying. So we all come together and so on and enjoy.
Nice
so
to
that's
hear
the beauty
that.
of it.
That's how we grew up, really.
Yeah.
That's the Gambia.
That's the Gambia for us.
Yeah, that's the
Like
Gambia.
very much my experience. I mean, growing up, my father Muslim, my mother Christian. So of course you had whole side of the family that's Muslim, and the other side Christian. So yeah, very much the kind of shared sort of experience.
That's
there.
it.
Yeah.
So now to business.
Thank you.
Prof, I hope you don't mind me calling you that.
Yeah, well, I prefer that way.
What I've got here, though, is very interesting. It's more of a question, really. Entrepreneurially driven? That's
education,
our education system.
Yes.
Gambia. Let's start with that, more generally. Is it entrepreneurially driven?
And should it be?
Should it?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mboj and Mr. Drame. You see, this question was asked many years ago during Sadau's time. That was supposed to be the answer. That was the reason why in those days, the government at that time, during Sadau's time, came up with the technical junior secondary schools and technical high schools. That was later what you have the SOS after the LKs and others and so on. They were supposed to be technical, not general education like Gambia High, St. Augustine's, St. Joseph's, who will do general education. And then now, in addition to junior secondary technical, you also have the technical high school, the SOS technical, St. Peter's technical. And there was supposed to be a continuum now, post-secondary. So unfortunately, we missed the route. And all these junior, secondary, technical, and technical high schools ended up doing general education like everybody.
Like else, yeah.
So we missed the road. And then and not only we miss it, but the continuum that we should have done, that is the post-secondary, to be able to have technical education, but then that technical that is linked to the job market.
Right.
Okay? Preparing the youths to be able to be in charge of their development, so that when they graduate, they will not be job seekers, but job creators. And they will be able to start their own business. So they need to come out with an entrepreneurial mindset. That when I graduate from Sadarame School, what he taught me, I should not wait for Mr. Mboj to employ me. I should be able to do something. I should be able to create my own job. But in the event that I am employed, I should be functional. I should not go to Mr. Mboj's company and wait for him to retrain me. It means that there was no link between what happened in the classroom and the industry. So the entrepreneurial education that we are talking about is an education where people get the right skill sets in during their training, number one. Number two, that training must be linked to the needs and aspirations of the industry. And then number 3, the student must be able now, when he is done, to be able to now either employ himself or create his own jobs. So this is the new norm, and that's what now the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology is trying to roll out for the Gambia and for the youths of this country.
Now, this is very interesting. So now they're required not only to have a technical knowledge of their area, then they're also required to have that other skill, the entrepreneurship, as it were, the entrepreneurial aspect. Quite interesting. Whereas perhaps with the old idea of the technical schools, perhaps this element of the entrepreneurial wasn't integrated, was it? No, it was impacted. What do you make of this shift now?
Well, yes. I mean, I think this is a debate that's been rumbling on, as Prof says, from even going back to Sadada's time. You know, are we training people? What are we educating people for? You know, you have a lot of people who, you know, they were educated and then they wanted a job in the civil service and so on. And, you know, you go to the West, they actually can teach you how to be an entrepreneur, because you might have a skill, but how do you profit from it? How do you benefit from it? How do you create jobs for yourself and for others? And in the West, it's become normal now to kind of encourage and nurture those skills. And I think that's where we're getting to. You know, so the kind of dependency culture that has kind of been a product of our previous education system is kind of fading away, because we realize that it's not the way forward. You know, we look at countries like Japan, Korea, and all these, you know, South Korea particularly, and we see how people are encouraged, and those countries and their community, they flourish because they encourage entrepreneurship alongside what you might call, you know, kind of standard education. It's not just one thing or the other, it's both. And I think that's where we need to get to.
That's it. So, Prof, earlier on you talked about the secondary technical schools, as it were, and the idea behind the creation. What went wrong afterwards? You spoke as if we missed
the road.
Yes. So where did we miss the road?
You know, the people succumb to the dictate of quote and unquote the majority and society with the mindset of technical education, the stereotyping of technical education, vocational technical education, as you remember the Wacha Rahasu syndrome and so on. So everybody wants to be in the office, you know, and so on, with the AC and so on. But you and I know very well that those in those areas are earning far better than some of us in the offices. So that's the issue. So society, the mindset was, you know, why should you do this? You know, you dirty your hands and so on and so forth. So you just need to be like me now, well dressed, and then go to the office and so on. But they did not understand that development cannot take place when all of us are in the office. People must come out under the sun and sweat for development to unfold. And this is the situation, and most of the schools at that time now you know, shifted, and we're doing general education because to get the numbers and all that and so on. That's why even for, you said University of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, University of Applied Science, Engineering and Technology rather, the program that we have, you have the engineering component, but you have the entrepreneurship embedded. So, and we don't wait for, the way it is, we don't wait for the end of the program, the 4 years. Every semester, they have a course on entrepreneurship. That's that's what is done with De Montfort University, Leicester, UK. We paid for that. Okay, so De Montfort University, Leicester in the UK, they're the one now handling that component of entrepreneurship and innovation. And then now we sign contracts also with some companies, so that at the end of the semester, each semester, these students will go and do internships there. and the agreement is there, what the expectations and so on and so forth. Every semester for 4 years. So not to wait until they finish, then you say, okay, let me send them for internship. No. See, what you learn, you practice it.
Yeah.
And it continues up to the end.
That's it. Has there been a sort of mindset shift in the way we see technical education? What do you think? What's your sense of it?
Well, I think that's what Prof is saying. That so now, when we talk about technical education, I think what has helped has been the kind of interest and the focus on STEM. That is kind of changing the narrative about what, you know, and because when I came here, I mean, people who were, you know, sort of 30 and above would say that, oh, you know, people who went into kind of the technical fields or went to technical, they were looked down on, and I think Prof has kind of sort of hinted at that. I think that is changing, because now you see somebody who they're a motor mechanic, and because they've got a nicely and properly set up garage, they're earning more than somebody who's just sitting behind a desk in an office. And people are now seeing that actually there are other things that one can do besides, as you said, sitting in the office with your AC and kind of freezing. You could be out there sweating, but you could be earning a lot more by doing something like that. And of course, everybody has different talents and different skills. So, you know, how do we encourage it? How do we nurture it? And how do we get people to kind of use their skills? We should not be in a position where, you know, we're importing engineers from anywhere. You know, I used to go to the annual, you know, convocation, and I think, where are the engineers? And then I think a year or two ago, they had the first batch of engineers, you know, civic engineers, you know, mechanical engineers. We should be having people graduating those. But at the moment, we're importing all of those. We cannot develop.
And in fact, the good news, just taking cue from what Mr. Rami said, the good news is rendezvous is on the 21st of June in Brikama for us to have two things. One, to have the convocation of the first homegrown engineers in this country.
Yeah, quite.
After 60 years of independence. 3 sets, 3 categories: the mechanical engineers, as you said, the civil engineering engineers, and electrical engineers, for the first time in the history of the Gambia. So they will graduate on the 21st, and under the leadership of His Excellency President Barrow. And then also the state-of-the-art campus of the College of Engineering in Brikama is, you know, will be inaugurated that same day, with state-of-the-art laboratory equipment. Even the professors, some professors there from Nigeria, confessed that where they're coming from, some of the equipment that we have, they don't have that in their, because you see, we have the 2 models. We have the manual one, and then we have now the latest one now, the electronic version. For some of the equipment, we have both systems. Manual and electronic. Whereas others is just the manual that they have. So that's the better late than never. But this is the new norm, and we are, as I'm talking to you, for us, we are now, you people will be celebrating celebrating that campus. For us now, as I'm talking to you, we've gone back to the kitchen. We are thinking of phase 2. We are now working on proposal, thinking of what will be the next phase. Because remember, I talk about mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and electrical engineering. We want to now have phase 2. That's what we are working on computer engineering, you know, and have architecture and design, and petroleum and gas, and other programs engineering programs that we want to have as the second phase. So we are now working on it, whilst we allow you people to celebrate the first phase, whilst we work on the other one.
But really, what I'm curious to know, though, have we done any studies anywhere where we can see the effect of integrating entrepreneurship into this program? We really need to know. So what has been the effect? Have we created more of them? You know what I mean? In the longer term, have we done anything like that? Because there's a good school of thought that says that entrepreneurs are born, not made.
Not made. Yeah,
How
yeah,
much
yeah.
of entrepreneurship or the success of it depends on IQ? They also talk about that.
Okay.
So it's a very curious area where perhaps we need some research evidence to see actually this is what we've seen. What do you think?
You know, I think 3 years ago, I attended the UN, the UNGA, and which was centered on education, and H's statement was more on TVET and hands-on education. Immediately I came back 1 month after, the UN invited me to go to Bonn, that's the headquarters of the UN, TVET
yeah,
center.
that's right. Yeah.
So he invited me, and I went. I was in a panel with the German Minister of Education, and then also with some other ministers, and they came up with their, studies, also their experiences. And then also last year, I was in London for the Education World Forum. The same thing with other countries where the same approach. Because I was in a panel on TVET, because as you know, I'm very, very passionate about this, because that's the way forward. And we have a lot of examples. And we also decided to have this, sell our model, the Gambian model. That's the blended approach that I talked about.
Right.
Not because most of the countries, they will have entrepreneurship at the end. Okay, they train you, let's say, take engineering, you get your training in engineering up to the end, then now you come for some entrepreneurship training. Okay, so that's one model in other countries. Even our neighbors now, for them, what they do is they have their training, but the entrepreneurship is separate and is voluntary.
Right.
You get the point? We visited those countries, just our neighbors. It's voluntary. The Gambian model is different from these two models. Ours is compulsory.
So it's integrated.
It's integrated.
Not just an add-on.
Yes, it's not an add-on,
Yeah.
and it's not by choice. It's part and parcel of the curriculum, number one. Number two, we don't wait until the end of the program. It's part, every semester, you have something on entrepreneurship and innovation. You see, creativity is what will develop a country. You need to allow talents to express themselves. And you need to nurture talents. But you don't wait until they're about to leave the campus, you start want to engage them. No, it's right there. That's the time now you'll be able to detect, and then you support them. And that's the reason why with our SIE fund, Skills, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Fund, close to $400 million for the first time in the history of the Gambia. That's what we are pumping in to support this hands-on education TVET. And it has 3 windows. Window 1 is to support the TVET centers, give them funds to better equip the TVET center, both public and private. Window 2 is the scholarships. Now, giving funds to these TVET so that they can support some of these students who are there. And some of them will not say, I wanted to get this skill set, but I don't have funds. So they will now support, give them that opportunity to get the training. And window 3 is the startups. So those with creative ideas, those who are about to finish and they have something good and they are able to package it well. We support them. And now to answer your original question, the entrepreneurial education, then now they will come out to create their own business. That's the ultimate objective. We are even now going, as I'm talking to you, in our academic kitchen, we are now trying to review window 3, which is the scholarship, by adding a subcomponent there that is paid internship, where now when they go, because you see, we are taking from our original model with USET, because that one is a project. So those students are also given something. But we want to have some bigger than that, something bigger than that, by having paid internship in different programs, not only at USEP, but for other civil centers, so that people have the desire and the willingness to really, and the love to go and sit down with those who know, so that they will take them through. So that's the mindset. And that will really help now address exactly your topic of today.
That's it. So I think, if I understand him well, is that the effectiveness of these programs depend on the model, and we have the right model.
We have the right model, and we certainly hope we have the right model. And just very quickly, the whole thing about, you know, born and not made. I mean, there have been examples before where you have people who have similar ideas, but one of them has been somewhere where they've taught them how to capitalize better on those ideas, and that person ends up being a millionaire. The other one still running a one-man show and a one-man shop, whilst the other is employing tens of hundreds of people, if not thousands, because they've been taught how to capitalize and maximize that entrepreneurial bent that they have, that comes naturally to them. Yeah.
That's it. I think that's a good point at which to end, and it was fantastic to know that our model is different, and I like that idea. It's a key giveaway there. Key takeaway. Thank you very much, Professor Pierre Gomez, for joining us on this program. It's been fantastic talking to you. I've learned a lot more on our Tibetan.
Thank you. So on that, regarding the Tibet and the entrepreneurial, so the key date here is on the 21st at 10 o'clock at the in Brikama for the first convocation of USET,
we shall be
and
there.
also the graduation ceremony. And then on the 10th, that is tomorrow. Now the famous, you know, I came here, we discussed it, that is the launching of the GMIS, the Gambia Madrasa Integration
His
Strategy.
Excellency the President will
For the
be
first time, the Gambia, all of us now will come together and see how to integrate Tibet and science into the madrasa. How now the madrasa can be now taken care of by the Republic. The Republic knows no boundary. The Republic knows no segregation. And then the Republic must come and support close to 20% of student population within high schools, because that's what it represents, and for social justice, for democracy to be fulfilled. So tomorrow, that's what we're going to do, coming together to now launch at the conference center by His Excellency President Annaba Barrow, the GMIS, the Gambia Madrasa Integration Strategy. And I hope you will all be there.
Absolutely.
And we will be there on the 21st.
That's what we like, isn't it? Ambition. Quite an ambitious one there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we will take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to have Dr. Amadou Diallo from UTG, lecturer, and stay to find out what we're going to talk about until we come back.
QCell mooy suñu boss. QCell mooy suñu boss. QCell mooy suñu boss. Soro go ebe dawa full network suta tili QCell ni lafta diamla wati jamala mune diata QCell most reliable network jumala keta wati QCell wo quality man nyon soto jam ona manke QCell ani be wuloni farole kono walante be bako na jala fayola network o se taria QCell suñu boss ñu fi njeka indi 3G ñu delu taxi 4G plus, and now we bring you 5G 5G first and only 5G provider suñu boss itela follow adi doron nesa keno Gambia bela nyon tawo fele QCell ko fasunta buka busi QCell itela molti milka kukutol nati Gambia QCell meta lori la kiliano yele imanyina amanda wala itela ka quality dila dadi ma itele silo wala wodol mume be keno ma QCell suñu boss QCell suñu boss QCell suñu boss QCell suñu boss connection be bambandi QCell suñu boss QCell most innovative QCell suñu boss
Kiwmoni arti webi nafitora gol no yawi te non kadi no moƴƴi Kiwmoni a wawa wadde piiji ɗin fow kala ko wonda wattu kala a wawa e hendade mbudi madin e o kiwmoni app ke song a wawa e nattinde mbudi madun yaltina soda credit soda kiw paba soda ko falada te non kadi wawa en yobude himbe e ko heewi ida wawi kadi nuldude kiwmoni yoba bilji madin te non kadi hendoda mbudi ko yasi nulda himbe kadi mbudi fi nafitoragol dun no weebi yahu ka play store madun ka app store fi wawa fuddade fi hebugol hen ko laabi noddu kiwmoni customer care e 133 kiwmoni suñu kalpe minen nguditi lawol ngol si woɓɓe jokki kiwmoni e muruntananne koteke ani
Hello, welcome back to this morning. We're now onto our final segment today, Ade. And we have in the studio Dr. Amadou Jallow. He's a lecturer at UTG. He will tell you what he lectures. And we are going to talk about a national workshop on double shift schooling system. What's that? Is it working? Is it not? Welcome to the program, Dr. Amadou Jallow.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers as well.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to be here.
That's it. Lecturer. What do you lecture? Give us a bit more detail.
So I lecture mainly in economics, macroeconomics, econometrics, and development economics in general.
That's it.
And for research, I do research on migration and now mostly focused on education economics, or economics of education, a branch of economics that focuses on education.
All right. That's very interesting, especially that bit about the research on migration. Maybe we'll get to that after we've dealt with our main topic for today, the double shift schooling system. What is it?
So, I mean, here in the Gambia, probably it's well known, morning and afternoon shift, I guess is the other way of calling it. So basically, here it is the case in the Gambia, but also in many other countries, that as a result of limited resources that the governments have, in order to maximize school enrollment, what the governments have done is to operate a shift system. So wherein you use the same school facilities, sometimes use the same teachers, and so the students will be allowed to come to school. Some of them will come to school in the morning, let's say from 8 a.m. to about 1:30 p.m. They will leave. Another group of students will come in from around the same time, 1:30 p.m. to 1:45, and they will continue till around 6 p.m. So this has been, again, like I said, it's been mainly implemented as a way of maximizing enrollment in a state where you're faced with limited resources. And so I guess it's very popular in the Gambia, especially among public schools.
Yes, and I think you led a study into this, and that's what the workshop was based on, that we attended. I was quite intrigued by this, because as somebody who went to school in Sierra Leone in the 60s and 70s, when I started going on holiday regularly, I suddenly started seeing children going to school in the afternoon. And it was quite an eye-opener for me. So it's, as you said, they do it in other countries. Certainly in Sierra Leone it's well established now. But how long has it been the case here in the Gambia? Any sense of that?
So I cannot tell the precise date, but I know it's been in existence probably from the 90s onwards.
Right.
And and if anything, it has been one of the main strategy through which the government has been able to maximize enrollment in schools. So you had about Education for All initiative in the 90s. I guess that was when this idea actually took
hold.
It became very much popular from those days on, and it's still in practice.
Now, my concern when I watched the thing, and we spoke to some of the people who were there, and you mentioned it, in some cases it's the same teachers who teach the morning shift. Now, if it's a strain for a student or pupil to kind of be in class from morning to evening, surely it must also be the same for the teachers. So what are we doing, if anything, and were these some of the things that were looked at when the workshop took place?
So so I could not look at that specifically, but yes, it is definitely the case, and as we will expect as well, that it's definitely going to be a strain on teachers. Teachers who struggle to complete the day. And as part of, in fact, the event of that day, we had a panel discussion, and one of the panelists was the head master of St. Teresa's. And you know, he mentioned that they have actually challenges in implementing that, but also even other colleagues that were in the workshop as well highlighted that in many instances, teachers, those especially teaching in the afternoon shift, are not very much motivated to go to the class in the afternoon. And so, you know, the principal or the headmaster has to go around trying to encourage teachers to resume. But again, that's typically, I mean, it's expected, you know.
Do they get double pay?
Not necessarily double pay, but I understand they get an additional pay for the extra hours. So it's essentially two things. It's cheaper for the schools to some extent, because I understand teachers are not paid the full salary of an additional teacher. But also for the teachers, they get paid an extra amount that, you know, probably could be, I don't know, 30% to 50% of their extra income. And so it's actually a win-win looking at it from financial terms. Now, the most important part that my research focused on was, yes, we've succeeded in increasing enrollment, and we are getting kids engaged during the day. They are all in school, but what is the impact on learning outcomes?
Yeah, quite.
So, again, for me, one of the motivations behind this, especially was a study. I mean, it was a press statement. I think the ministry had probably 3 years ago or so. The WAEC results were out. The West African Senior School Certificate Examination, the WAS exam results were out for that particular year, and the results weren't as good. The results were probably one of the poorest, I think, in recent times. And so a lot of noise was being made, you know, a lot of discussions like, oh, maybe it's a double shift, maybe it's a double shift. Okay, and so the ministry actually came up with a projected estimate of how much it will cost for the government to eliminate the double shift, okay? Meaning the cost of building new schools, classrooms, hiring new teachers, and so on. And the amount, I cannot recall the precise amount, but it was an exorbitant amount, considering especially you know, the budget constraints that the ministry is faced with, and of course the Gambia government as a whole. And so to me, I was like, well, probably we need to have some form of way of informing whether this really will solve our problem. And so the big question was, what can we see? What can we see from the data? I mean, I work with data as an economist, so that's one of the skills I have. You know, I said, okay, let's just look at what the data says, and then we can say, okay, well, this probably is definitely has a negative effect or not. And so my research was mainly centered around trying to see if we compare students' learning outcomes, those in public schools attending single shift and double shift. Single shift here, I mean like a whole day school. And just see, do we see a significant difference in learning outcomes? As well as if you restrict it also to only private schools as well, do we see those between the two shifts performing very differently? And so that was basically what we did. And one of the interesting things that we found was that within public schools at foundational level, meaning students in grade 1 to grade 3, we did not find strong evidence of a negative impact. Of course, we found that it has a negative impact on learning outcomes, but the effect we estimate at the foundational level was very small as opposed to what we estimate at the higher level. And at the higher level, we focused only on private schools. And within private schools, we looked at double shift and single shift, and there we find there was significant impact on learning outcomes. So students in single shift schools, in private schools at the high school level, have much poorer learning outcomes than their counterparts in single shift schools. And this is interesting because the government mostly for policymakers, most of the focus is going to be on, mostly on public schools. So hardly you hear the discussions around private schools. And so I think bringing this to the picture, like say, hey, where you can potentially have a larger effect is at private schools. Okay, based on, of course, what we have. I think this is sort of like, it's an important point that I think it will be useful for the ministry in terms of their policies.
Yeah, absolutely, that's a fascinating one, because for a very long time people have sort of talked about it, you know, in discussions and the like, that the people in the afternoon shift are shortchanged. You know, obviously teachers will be tired, particularly when you have that continuity. But it's, what a fascinating finding there. What do you make of it?
It really is, and also I think, you know, one of the things that, I don't know if you were around in 2018, there was a conference called Our Education, Our Future, which was held at Paradise Foundation. I attended that, and I was involved in the kind of organizing of it. And so we had people from both the public schools and the private schools. And when we went around, the thing that struck me most was about just a kind of, it wasn't scientific necessarily, but just how confident the children from the private schools were. So when we would go to the private schools, I would finish speaking and I would say any questions and hands would shoot up. At the public schools, I would say any questions, nobody would move. And it really was, you had to force them to kind of engage them with things. So as I said, it wasn't a kind of scientific experiment exactly, but it just showed you the thing. And so it did surprise me when I heard that the private schools were also doing the sort of, you know, double shift. And because I'd always perceived that, because in Sierra Leone suddenly it was mainly the public schools, the government-run schools that were doing it. And I had discussed this many times. I'd always wanted to be a teacher, mainly because, you know, there were teachers who inspired me. And so I always used to say, but aren't the teachers going to be a bit tired physically and mentally by the time they're doing the later shift? You know, imagine if you're doing it 5 days a week. It's not, you know, for all the money you might be getting as a kind of recompense. I think mentally there's a kind of, you know, fatigue that might set in, and that was my concern. And you know, I'm glad that this was, you know, something that you sort of looked at. Yeah.
That's it. My example there is that when I was at QIT, Quantum Net Institute of Technology, I once had this student. We were discussing something, but she was climbing up, not talking much. And she said to me, I'm shy. Then I said to her, what about in Wolof or anything else? Are you shy? She said, no. I said, you're not shy. Maybe you're not confident in using English, which is a slightly a different thing. So, but now, to our topic, the double shift schooling. So, given what we know, where are we heading? Which direction should we go?
So I think now one thing that I think it's important to highlight is based on the data we have, we are unable to say, if you look at foundational level, public and private, the double shift has a larger effect in public schools than in private schools. So at foundational level, we only look at the effect of the double shift in public schools. Again, simply because you don't have much variation in terms of the double shift within private schools. Okay, at least from the data that we had. So the data that we used is the early grade reading assessment data that was conducted in 2016. 2016 simply because we had a lot more bio data that could be much more useful for our analysis. Of course, there is the 2023 that is available, but we are unable to use that because it's not very informative. So similarly at the high school level as well, we do have both public and private, but we focus only on the private simply because, again, most of the public schools at the high school level are predominantly double shift. So you have very little room for comparison. So because most of it, over 90%, I think, of students enrolled in high schools, in public schools, are mostly in double shift schools. And so you find that, whereas actually in the private schools you have a much larger variation. So I think you have about 40%, 50% in our data. So essentially you have a lot more variability to be able to make that, you know, rigorous comparison. So I think that's important. And so for me, the next step I think that will be very relevant is to see, I mean, if we could have more data available, I mean, probably working more closely with the ministry to see if we could dig further. Because again, yes, this is the findings, but again, this is just one findings. And again, I know if anything, when it comes to making policy, it's a lot more complex.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, there is this famous recent article by Stefan Dekron at Oxford University that's titled "Best Buy in Research is not necessarily best buy in politics." And so I guess this is essentially, it's like, you know, a way of asking researchers to think through, well, yes, you find something interesting, but how do you communicate it to policymakers such that it makes sense to them? And so I think the most important point for me will be to see this taking a next step further. We have a lot more data at the ministry that we could potentially use, and I'm sure we could work closely with them. By the way, I am very grateful to the Directorate of Performance Evaluation and Monitoring under the leadership of Director Andrew Gomez, who has been very, you know, helpful and has been, you know, made the data available to me that I use, that is the AGRA data, but also at the SCAD, the Standard Quality Assurance Department, then under the leadership of Alpha Ba, who we are also very much willing to collaborate. Most of the guys, they have been very helpful in collaborating. So I think this is a starting point, and so for me, this should be what we should use to drive the conversation. So it's a starter for a conversation. So we know this much. What can we learn a lot more? What more can we get to know before we can say, well, this is how we should do? But if anything, I think the policy recommendations based on this initial findings that, look, it's, again, for the government, it's less costly to require private schools to reduce double shifting of teachers or double shifting of schools, because again we know private schools are largely, not entirely, but largely motivated by profit.
Yeah.
And so if they operate on double shift, again, it's not surprising that it's largely going to be driven by a profit motive. And so having a policy towards that, forcing them to sort of like scale down on this, you know, I think it's going to be very easy, as opposed to requiring the, I mean, government having to invest heavily in financing, building more classrooms or hiring more teachers. This probably takes a lot more time.
Sure.
And so for me, I think this is supposed to be a conversation starter for, again, not only how we look at the double shift only and what to do, but I think more moving towards more data-driven policies. We have a ton of data. In the Gambia, I tell the colleagues at the ministry that, look, I think here is where one of the countries in the world where we have a lot of data, a lot of very good data. And if you go to international fora, the Gambia is always commended for conducting assessments, for having a very good education management information system, the EMIS, you know, across the world. In other countries, the problem is collecting data, conducting assessments. In the Gambia, our problem is using it, using it to inform policies. And I think this is really where we need to go from henceforth.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful there.
Absolutely.
They just keep on ringing in my ear. Time is up.
Oh, my word, already?
We've exhausted our time.
Yes.
And, you know, it flies by when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Well, indeed. And I'm particularly pleased that the last two segments have dealt with education.
Yeah, absolutely.
In sort of two contrasting, but somehow linked thing. But Dr. Jallow, pleasure having you here. And we look forward to the next convergence around this subject, because I think it's an important one, it's a crucial one.
That's it, and we look forward to our viewers joining us tomorrow as well. We've come to this, the end of this program, and possibly Ibrahim Abalde will come back, and I hope that I measure up at least 50%.
I think he's off for the whole week.
He's off for the whole week? Yes, that's Balde for you, the inimitable Balde. Until tomorrow, goodbye.